Young Danny Fenton, he was just 14. What? Did I say young? That's right, I said young. A lot of you think it's Yo Danny Fenton. It's not. It's young. And how do I know this? Because I wrote the theme song. So I know when I wrote Young Danny Fenton, that's what it is. It is Young Danny Fenton, he was just 14. Did I blow your mind? I blew your mind, didn't I? I didn't mean to.
Young Danny Fenton, he was just 14. Young Danny Fenton, he was just 14.
Young Danny Fenton, he was just 14. Young Danny Fenton, young Danny Fenton, young Danny Fenton, young Danny Fenton, young Danny Fenton.
Uh-huh. Whatever you say, man. Think there might have been a bit of a miscommunication between you and the singer, but who am I to judge? Regardless, we find ourselves on the 7th episode of Season 1, Bitter Reunions. The introduction to who is arguably the most recognizable villain in the roster, and what is quite possibly the best episode of the entire goddamn series. There you go. There's your hot take for the day. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm confident sticking to that statement. I know some people might be looking at the screen right now saying, gasp, what about Ultimate Enemy? And don't worry, we'll get to that in like 3 years maybe. But no, out of all 53 episodes of this series, Bitter Reunions is absolutely the best in terms of the story, character development, and the conflict between those characters. And that's still considering all the stupid crap that's still in it, and the fact that it was all haphazardly crammed into 22 minutes like normal. Yes, it still has pretty much all of the fundamental issues that this show is riddled with at its core, but the story itself isn't a gigantic slab of Swiss cheese like we've become so accustomed to. For the most part, anyway. Basically, I can say that this was a well-needed breath of fresh air, and it was the first time that Platinum Okami and I sat down for an episode and said to ourselves, damn, there's actually redeeming qualities in this one. The premise of the episode revolves around Jack and Maddie's college reunion and how it'll be hosted by an old friend of Jack's, Vlad Masters. After the intro scene that we'll discuss momentarily, Danny's parents decided that it would be a good idea to drag their kids along to it. And yes, this idea was arrived at because Danny's parents are completely insane, but in all honesty, it's kind of Jazz's fault that all this is happening. More or less, the situation arose because Danny got in trouble for being late on his 10 o'clock curfew. I suppose I could make fun of Jack and Maddie for getting mad at him for the literal 25 seconds that he was late, but whatever, guys. I'm not here to tell you how to raise your kids. You want to be the boot camp sergeant drill parents, then more power to you. Weird you haven't noticed your kid's superpowers yet if you're watching his schedule that closely, though. Danny's on-time arrival is interrupted by 3 ghost vulture things that are going around tormenting the nearby houses.
Or not. Going ghost!
I have a solution for this. Go home first.
Yeah, I'm back. Oh, nice to see you, Mom. Okay, I'm going upstairs. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Also, like, why is this motherfucker riding a moped around, huh?
Because it's 2004.
Okay. I don't care what year it is, he can fly. Maybe it wouldn't be almost late all the time if you just fucking flew around.
After confronting the group, one of them shows him a torn picture of Jack asking for his whereabouts. He states that they're on an assassination mission of sorts, which of course is enough to trigger our little intro fight sequence.
You know that old saying about a bird in the hand? Well, neither do I!
Thank you, Danny. You're always really on point with the quippy one-liners. I wonder how often you think of ones you could have said during different fights you've been in.
I like how he waited for Danny to quit before he decided to try to do anything.
I wonder why those guys were trying to waste Dad.
I wonder why those guys were trying to assassinate my father. It's not like he opens, interdimensional portals or anything.
Anyway, sure is weird that none of these people that these birds were randomly attacking ever said anything about it, screaming in horror at the green vulture things that just phased out of their ceiling and then completely forgot about once they left. As usual, everyone in this town is constantly being tormented by evil spirits and none of them actually seem to care about it. I feel like I'm watching Rings again. So Danny returns home and proceeds to take his whippings.
Or I have another idea. Another idea. So instead of what Danny's about to do right now, which is stupid, you just sneak your way in by phasing through the wall into your room and go, yeah, I was home all the time. You guys must not have noticed. What are they going to do?
Accuse him of being a ghost and attack him.
No, that's Jazz.
That's
That
true.
absolutely
Yeah,
is
that's
Jazz.
true. Yeah, good point. We get the stereotypical "you don't understand me" excuse, followed by the "we went through the same thing you did as a kid" reply.
You're constantly late coming home.
You're shirking from your chores.
Your grades are slipping.
No, I'm pretty sure Danny's grades aren't slipping. He's just an idiot. They've always sucked, and it's kind of always been that as a constant through the show. Yeah. This does not just start happening.
This ultimately prompts Jazz to decide that she has things to say on the situation.
The reason Danny doesn't think you can relate to him is that you never take the time to tell him about your childhood.
Ah, but Jazz, don't you know Jack and Maddie are the out-of-touch boomer stereotypes? Now they're gonna drag you and Danny to a boring thing you don't want to go to. Oh, no. What makes this all the more horrific is it's taking place in Wisconsin. And what, dare I ask, has ever come out of Wisconsin?
Leanne? Leanne Grayson? Hello, Mrs. Turner.
So good job, Jazz. Normally it's Danny's moron friends that kickstart the plot, but you're clearly making up for lost time, huh? Makes it all the more irritating when you blame Danny for it later on. During the journey, Jack regales us with Vlad's backstory. Honestly, I would say this is probably the biggest misstep of the story. I would have saved this for much later on, if not being just a flashback we see at the very end. As it stands, it kind of gives the reveal away immediately that Vlad's also half ghost, as it details how he was exposed to a failed portal experiment Jack was trying to do while he was in college.
He was hospitalized with a horrible case of ectoacne. It devastated him and killed his social life.
Oh, okay. Well, they didn't. I'll give them credit. They didn't go the usual trope that I thought it would be.
Yeah.
How many got acne? And he was shunned from society.
Yeah.
That's different. Touche.
Yeah. Can't hold it against the episode too hard, though, considering a lot of it was spoiled through the meta anyway, compounded onto the fact that any viewer with any level of deduction abilities whatsoever would immediately think to themselves, I wonder who the villain of the episode is. If anything, a point could be given in its favor by the mere fact that Danny's parents actually have a past that predates the show now. Congratulations, Jack and Maddie. I now know more about you than I do our protagonist. This seems to be a common occurrence in this show.
No, but if you're going to try to have a fucking, oh wait, it's actually Vlad who's the bad guy, even though he literally oozes, I'm evil, they could have at least set this up to, like, in the middle of the episode.
Yeah.
Or, like, 3/4 of the way through, where Vlad's like, oh, well, your dad is trash.
But I digress. One thing that is worth noting is that Vlad's history itself is a bit on the confusing side. After the accident with the portal, it's stated that he spent many years afterward in a hospital.
I'm well aware that this is Jack's stupidity, because the calculations are wrong, but also, why did you start it while he was right there? But also, Vlad, why did you just step out of the way? Like, why were you staring at, you know what they were going to go do, and yet you decided to stare at it.
Stick his face right in the middle of it.
There's no, you're supposed to be the smart guy here, Vlad, and you aren't very.
Considering Danny was dealing with the onset of his powers immediately after his accident, it's strange to me that not a single doctor, other patient, or basically anyone noticed that Vlad was going through the exact same thing. It's a miracle in and of itself that Danny was never noticed, but Vlad would be under near constant supervision considering his condition. You're not telling me that he never involuntarily became invisible or intangible during those points. Keep in mind, he's not a rich guy at this point. He is a standard lowly citizen that no one cares about. A later episode makes it clear that it was his ghost powers that facilitated his riches in the first place, so at the time of his accident he'd just be another guy at the hospital, and anyone noticing supernatural crap happening around him could lead to the possibility of some damn unfortunate consequences. I wouldn't call this a problem, mind you, moreover than I would a point of interest. If Vlad was evil bad guy set on revenge from the get-go, it doesn't take much to come to the conclusion that, oh, yeah, he probably just did away with those who found out about him. But damn, there's an interesting story in that. Another example of narrative potential glazed over by the writer saying to us, yeah, he has ghost powers too, because same thing happened to him. If you hadn't noticed, I like to explore that wasted potential. So imagine, if you will, an origin story of Vlad, detailing his time in the hospital as he tries to come to grips with his new abilities, slowly losing his mind in the process and killing anyone who finds out about it. All the while keeping Jack in the forefront of his thoughts constantly as the man who did this to him as he struggles to master these abilities. Could even tie it in with the duplication power he has, showing that he went down a different branch, if you will, than Danny did. Show how he cloned himself and left the clone in the hospital bed while he was out and about practicing and preparing for revenge. Goddamn, you could have had a full feature-length movie just about that. And then everyone could compare it to King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. He even had a somewhat relatable motivation beyond just revenge. As is the staple of his character, Vlad is deeply in love with Maddie, and all of his actions are brought forth by this fact. So not only is Jack viewed as the man who ruined his life and turned him into a monster, but he is also the man who stole the woman he yearned for the most. Not the most original of character depths, but, I mean, it's a Danny Phantom episode. The second most fleshed out villain was a kid who got bullied a lot. So this is a multi-layered character study in comparison. All that aside, though, I can pretty safely say that the placement of this story would easily detract from any potential reveal you try and get across to your audience later on. The story is mainly just acting as a soft reveal in and of itself. Oh, gee golly whiz, Vlad basically had the exact same accident I had. I wonder if he has ghost powers. Oh, look at that. Danny's mildly concerned. Good job, Danny. You noticed something might be wrong this time. You gave the audience the standard cartoon look of, uh-oh. I wonder if you'll approach this situation with any level of caution whatsoever, or if you'll just completely forget about it in the next 15 seconds. Who wants to take bets on that? Anyway, after all this, we're finally introduced to the man himself, Vlad Masters, immediately portraying his unmistakable aura of antagonist to the human race, standing before his mansion that's undoubtedly seen hundreds of child sacrifices over the course of however long it's been there. And in true evil rich guy style, he proceeds to hide absolutely none of his motivations, graciously letting Maddie and the kids in while closing the door in Jack's face. This is clearly evil, like every single other rich person on the planet that nobody ever picks up on.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like, oh, he's evil because he's rich. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. But goddamn,
yeah. No, it's not. He's not evil because he's rich. He's rich because he's evil. Weirdly enough, that's how that works. Also, this dude literally is the most fucking evil motherfucker. Like, at least some rich people in real life can at least pretend to be nice people. This dude literally exudes rape, murder, and child sacrifice.
This is followed by a plethora of Green Bay Packers trivia, something that the rest of the episode is rather insistent on informing us of. I'm skipping all of it. That being said, good on you, Bitter Reunions. You gave Vlad an extra little piece of character there. We're barely even a quarter of the way through the episode, and not only have we not encountered a reality-shattering problem yet, but Vlad here is quickly on his way to becoming the most fleshed out and multi-layered character in the entire show so far.
Ha! I see you still got the old moves.
Give me that! I never had any old moves. All those years in the hospital robbed me of that.
Man, you were doing lab projects, bro. You weren't having old moves because you're a fucking nerd, okay? Let's not mix words here.
I'm impressed, but simultaneously stumped that you decided to put this much thought and effort into this character specifically. I suppose you realize that this guy was going to end up being the Joker of this series, so fair enough. But damn, there's more character depth here than there is in Danny, Sam, and Tucker combined at this point.
Yeah, maybe we should go.
Hey, look at that. This is that rare flicker of intelligence that Maddie occasionally shows. Yes, Maddie, you should leave. This person is clearly insane. The only way he could show off the grudge he's obviously still holding even more would be if he just pointed at Jack and blatantly said, "I'm going to try and kill you tonight," as he licks the baby blood off of his lips and rubs his hands together like a slightly healthier Mr. Burns.
You know, Jack, the Dairy King's ghost could haunt these very halls.
I'll get the bags!
Oh, well, that's a lie, Vlad.
Yeah, there's no ghosts in this world that are dead people.
In the following scene, Danny is woken up by his ghost sense at the most narratively appropriate time for it to do so. Strange, though, as it should have been going off like it was -40 as soon as he stepped into the goddamn house, but no well. Convenient, as he's able to save his dad at the last second and scare off the plot devices before they pursue him further. After such, he is confronted by Vlad in his ghost form, and immediately we're shown that Danny is absolutely no match for him whatsoever. It's like, oh, and what a surprise, the 40-something-year-old man is able to overpower the 14-year-old.
Yeah. Also, you should already... we're going to get the reveal that Danny doesn't realize this is Vlad, and Vlad doesn't know this is Danny until he kicks Danny's ass. Danny looks exactly the fucking same. Vlad, I can get it. I get it. You know, he looks a little different, you know? Because it looks like a fucking caricature of the devil for whatever reason, you know. And fucking they got the fucking Vlad the Impaler cape going on. Yeah, cause still their voices don't change. Okay, that's my main problem here. I'm like, what? I heard that before. Right, that sounds like Vlad. That sounds like Danny. Oh my god.
Dude, Danny. Yeah.
Instead of where they do it, which is stupid.
I'm gonna go kill your dad now.
My vultures were supposed to bring the big idiot to me, but you'll do.
No, that's not true. That is not what the vulture said, which they could also just be complete fucking idiots. But no. They said they were there to peck him to death, so somebody's lying.
Yeah, there's a miscommunication somewhere, Vlad. A very brief scene, given the 20-minute limit, but the time is definitely utilized pretty well. Other than the fact that Danny decided to use literally none of his powers whatsoever and instead opted to try and punch him. But, I guess that's nothing new. Too bad Danny doesn't have a ranged attack he could try out. Or invisibility. Or you know, a device that instantly wins the battle for him.
Aren't you going to try to shove me into your ridiculous thermos?
Yes. Roll credits.
Yeah, get in the thermos. Credits. Now I learned something on this trip. I should use the thermos more often. He walks off screen. It's over.
Yeah. So you know about that. Shame Danny's an idiot, otherwise maybe he could connect the dots on what's actually happening here. Gee, this new ghost I just met sounds like the billionaire I just met, who I know has been in a similar accident as me. What a coincidence, huh? Interestingly, the statement about the thermos is one of those rare throwaway lines that's actually accounted for later on. I'll give you a thumbs up on that one, even though it was probably on accident. As we find out later, Vlad had been working with some of the other ghosts Danny had fought, implying that he would be well aware of this other entity that was protecting the area and what equipment he would use to do so. Realistically, this is probably a retcon, but regardless, it's pretty nifty. It shows that Vlad had a decent strategy for how he was going to approach his attack on the Fentons. What better way than to keep sending more and more stronger ghosts to see exactly what he's up against, especially after he finds out that there's someone playing guard duty in the town. It would only follow that he would try and learn as much about this kid as he possibly could and how he could counter the strategies that he uses. Skulker in particular would be a gold mine of information for him, and more than likely that's where he found out about the thermos to begin with.
Also, that every ghost that Danny's fought up until now has literally just been sent by Vlad.
I mean, I don't think all of them were. I mean, let's see.
That's good because the dragon wasn't. And
Yeah.
if it was trying to pass it off that it was, I'd be like, well, that's not true.
They said and others, so I mean, what else is Danny?
Technus. You're telling me that could explain why Technus was just waiting on the other side of the fucking bullshit.
That's
but then
true.
why would you need to do that when you could just free him and have him fly his happy ass over there?
Sent Desiree. He put the bottle with the genie. It's like, I'm going to put this right here and somebody's going to knock it over.
Plans within plans. He's too good.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out, you can see where Vlad's head is. That doesn't match
It doesn't
up with the
match
model.
with where it's going. Oh no, another flaw.
Tragic.
Yep. However, with that being said, it's very odd that he never made the connection that it was Danny. And I'm not even just saying that because Danny's ghost form is just a recolor of his normal form. It's because he puts basically zero effort in actually concealing his identity. In addition to the constant public usage of his powers, almost all of his battles have been accompanied by the 2 kids that are also his real-life friends. That's not even something I would call tip of the iceberg worthy. It's the very small sliver of ice that was melted off by the breath of the person looking at it. Just because everybody in Amity Park has the observational skills of a dying fruit fly doesn't mean that someone who put enough effort to find out about Danny's thermos wouldn't also come to the conclusion that, oh, that's obviously Jack's son. What a surprise, he did it again.
Tell me, child, can you do this yet?
No, I can't. How are you doing all this?
Years of practice, which you unfortunately have no time for.
See, this is actually an okay scene, the whole showing the difference between mastery and rookie shit.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't bad.
This is probably the best scene in the entire series.
But, it's a nice piece of very expensive cheese surrounded by very cheap meat in a sandwich.
Very, yeah. A little breath of what could have been. After Danny loses his ghost form and gives Vlad that last puzzle piece he's been missing, he's placed back into bed, wherein the encounter is passed off as a dream. First of all, Danny, I'm intrigued that you're not wondering at all why Jeff Bezos is in the room watching you sleep. Gee, Mr. Masters, it's like 2 a.m. and you're standing in the doorway, fully dressed in your usual suit while staring at me while I'm asleep. Did the Masonic meeting get out early tonight? As you can imagine, not a single question enters Danny's mind about any of this, nor is he wondering at all why he's sore as hell in correspondence with the dream he's assuming he just had, and he immediately goes back to sleep. I suppose if nothing else, we can say he's staying consistent. Heaven forbid he ever encounters a single competent enemy. But now we can get to the actual college reunion bit. There's nothing really to talk about regarding it. We get introduced to this character, but her mere existence is just to set up a joke for the end. She's a reporter who doesn't believe in ghosts. Then at the end, she believes in ghosts. And then she gets fired for trying to write a story about ghosts. Weirdly, that last bit all happens in the amount of time that it takes for the reunion to conclude, mind you. She must have really been on the ball for that story.
I can't believe they fired Harry.
Of course they fired her. She tried to file some crackpot story about ghosts.
What? What do you mean, crap? There's literally like 100 people that just saw that happen.
Yeah, right?
Right. What the fuck do you mean crackpot? Bullshit. Also, they fired her already?
Yeah. She already wrote the story, submitted it, and got fired after having it reviewed.
You're fired.
You're right.
You're so stupid you can't even keep up our diversity quota. That's how bad you are. Get out of here.
Also, shut up, Jazz. You know ghosts are real. You've seen them.
Yeah.
It's like...
Stupid bitch. God. I hate... That's the other thing. She sees them all the time. It's like, what do you just... If they weren't so obvious, if they were more subtle, I'd be like, okay, she's explaining it away with science or something. No, they are blatantly obvious freaking monsters.
Regardless, the entirety of her character has been covered, so we can move on now. I don't think she ever appears in the show again. At this point, Lord Rothschild approaches Danny and very ominously tells him that he has a present for Jack in his laboratory.
You go to my evil laboratory and fetch a present for your father.
Make sure you put it in his drink. But don't tell him it's a surprise.
Yeah. Oh no! I had no idea the multi-billionaire who watches sleeping children in the darkness like a goddamn vampire was evil. How much of your life must have been upturned with that revelation, huh, Danny?
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Why do you have to tear the picture in half to give it to the ghost?
Like, what a revelation.
Just in case the ghosts get confused with the other 2 people in the picture. He's like, it's this one. And then the ghosts take the picture like, shit, which one did he say? We gotta kill all 3 of them now.
Okay,
that net really sucked. God damn.
Yeah, what the fuck was the point of that net if he could just go and break out of it?
Oh man, you suck, Skulker.
Hey, I can't phase out of this. It's It's disrupting my powers.
If Skulker can make a box like that, why doesn't he make the net out of the same crap?
I don't know.
Or something similar.
That
Is
is-
a net that does nothing but electrocutes you a little bit.
It's like, wow, this is really cool. I'm going to put this in all of my gadgets. Like, this is great. All that aside, though, not a bad plan you've worked up here. Even though you've kind of already botched it, but we'll talk about that in a second. As I mentioned earlier, it's kind of neat that Skulker was hired on by Vlad, upgrading his technology in exchange for information and other jobs, such as what he's doing in this scene. Gives us a nice little bit of continuity for the show, and more opportunities for me to criticize it later. The question would otherwise arise of why Skulker gives this much of a crap, but it's all accounted for pretty nicely. Too bad Skulker remains a complete moron and still has the PDA installed into his arm for whatever reason, has access to all of the technology that a multi-billionaire could offer him, and opts to keep a 2004 BlackBerry wired into his armor that regularly screws him over. Also, I guess Tucker still had research projects scheduled for Danny on the gorilla up to this point. Little blossoming genius that he is, he had this crap set for multiple weeks or possibly months beyond when the assignment was actually due. As you can see, I'm shocked.
I've got to go to the library and check out a book on a gorilla.
Again!
Oh, so you got upgrades, did you?
Got upgrades,
Because
but he left the PDA in his arm.
how is that still updating anyway? Unless it fucking Tucker when he made those things in the calendar, he put them on repeating every month.
Although, all that aside, you've been doing pretty good up to this point, Vlad. Can't wait to see how you screw it all up, since you kind of have to in order for Danny to win at this point. Oh, there it is. Oh, there goes that brief little moment of competency. Completely disregarding the one and only strategic advantage you had over Danny. Seems all the years of careful planning would have accounted for this, but oh well.
I'm going ghost! Going ghost! Why can't I go ghost?
You have a battle cry, hilarious.
I don't know about that, Vlad. Useless and annoying, sure, but you also haven't had to listen to it for 7 episodes. I would give the show a point for self-awareness, but I'm not that generous. More on the point, though. What the hell are you thinking right now, Vlad? If I'm understanding the plan correctly, your intention is to kill Jack and be the shoulder to cry on for Maddie so you can swoop in and be the Fenton stepdad. And you've been doing so good up to this point. How exactly does revealing yourself to Danny give you any advantage whatsoever?
I could train you, teach you everything I know.
Oh, you're giving him the Darth Vader join me pitch. Huh. I don't really know how you're honestly expecting this to go. Hey kid, I'm gonna go murder your father real quick. After that, I'd like you to start referring to me as Daddy, and we'll have ghost power playtime in the backyard. Gee, Vlad, I wonder how the teenager is going to respond to that.
Dude, you are one seriously crazed up Fruit Loop. That is never going to happen.
Yes, well, once your father is out of the way, we'll see how you feel.
Oh, yeah, once your dad's dead, we'll see if you want to fucking be my weirdo fucking protege. After you know that I killed your dad. That'll work out great.
Yeah. And goddamn, you had everything so well planned out, too. You realize you could have come into the room, staged a rescue where you stopped Skulker, and regardless of how bad of an actor you were, I mean, let's be honest, Danny still would have fallen for it, and then you could have reinforced his trust in you. Only thing you'd have to deal with is the arising suspicion that came up because you left this stupid thing out in the open. You could have fulfilled your plan right here and now. And Danny would still be under the assumption that you're a good guy. Why wouldn't you want that to remain the case? You have the ability to clone yourself, you moron. You could have had a version of you going out and causing the chaos to kill Jack, while the other version of you goes to save Danny after the deed is done, while under the guise that you barely escaped from this supernatural rampage that just took place. Right there. Danny is taken out of the equation and can't do anything to stop you, while simultaneously remaining ignorant to what you're doing. And to put the cherry right on the top here, you'll look good to Maddie for saving her son. I'm coming up with a better evil plan than you are. And you can't tell me for a second that wasn't what he was planning. But the writers said to themselves, we don't know how Danny would stop that. And so you just lowered his IQ by about 10 points for the finale. Because even though the other ghost that Vlad somehow didn't take into account came and saved Danny during all the chaos, it still would have left him at the massive disadvantage of not knowing Vlad's secret, which is ultimately how he wins in the end. I can't even say that Vlad's upper hand in this is because he can just kill Danny if he doesn't agree, because honestly, how the hell is Vlad ever going to know that Danny isn't just playing along so he can get out? Which is what Danny should do, by the way, but of course he doesn't. There is no outcome from this where your plan isn't in danger and you now have to account for the fact that someone else knows who you are. But, of course, not a second thought is given to any of this, as Vlad heads off to enact the evil while leaving Danny completely unsupervised in the meantime. This allows him to be rescued by the next plot device that showed up, because Danny wouldn't have been able to get out of it otherwise.
Hey, will you help me fight Plasmius?
Dan, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
How does Danny know that Vlad calls himself Plasmius in his ghost form?
That's a good question, because no one said that.
Whoops. Interesting. This is the first time we ever hear Vlad being referenced as that in the show, and it was just Danny knowing what it was. Impressive, guys. So now here we are at our finale. Danny interrupts Vlad's possession of Jack and starts battling with him in the library. We get another brief join me speech before Vlad proceeds to just completely lose any semblance of composure and just starts doing evil crap because evil. What is your plan, Vlad? He's like, I'm going to Phantom of the Opera kidnap her. Wait for the Stockholm Syndrome to set in.
Right.
And this finally concludes with Danny overshadowing Jack and using it as a tool to blackmail Vlad. He threatens to expose both of them should Vlad not agree to screw off. He reasonably makes the statement that in the end his parents will accept him for who he is, but obviously not so for Vlad.
So you admit that you don't have to keep your shit from your parents right now. You just admitted it. This is Vlad cringing at how stupid you are. Well, you literally have the ability to do. You could literally. You should just do it anyway. You have no benefit from hiding if you know your parents are going to accept you. Then just walk out of Vlad right now and do that. And then you win. You win so hard after that. And you'll never have to deal with Vlad again because you probably fucking get rid of him. Realistically.
And since we're nearing the 20-minute mark, Vlad agrees to this. He does a quick little defeat speech to add some theatrics into the mix before disappearing, gone for the remainder of the episode. So how lovely, Danny got himself a nice little stalemate going through the use of blackmail. I'm sure you'll continue to use that threat with any future encounters you have with this person. And there we are. All's well that ends well. Danny emerges victorious in the end because Vlad decided to be a complete moron halfway through his evil plan. Definitely seems to be a bit of a pattern, doesn't it? However, we are breaking one tradition today. Apparently, Danny went through an episode without being an asshole to someone. How about that? Yeah, Danny was just a normal kid this episode. Didn't ruin anybody's lives by his mere presence this time around. That's definitely not a byproduct of the fact that his friends weren't around to call him a terrible person for no reason. Notice how the best episode of the series didn't have Tucker or Sam in it. Wonder if that's coincidental.
Yeah, right. Holy shit. Yeah, I didn't even realize.
Yeah, I know. I barely missed them either.
It shows how little they add to it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty rough.
Guaranteed if Sam and Tucker were here on this little vacation, they'd be bitching to Danny about how he woke them up while Vlad was beating on him in the other room. And then we'd have a valuable lesson to learn about how you need to be considerate of others when they're trying to sleep. That little reprieve is about to expire, sadly, because Danny's on his way back to Amity Park now. I imagine he's quietly rehearsing in his head what he's going to say to them when he gets back. My parents made me go to a college reunion with them. Someone there tried to kill my dad. Yes, I know. I haven't hung out with you for a couple days. I'm a bad person. I'm sorry. I'll do better. What's that? Sam broke into the zoo and let more animals out of their cages while I was gone? That's very righteous of you, Sam. I'm sure all of those animals are super happy to be out in the wild again. I'm really glad I continue to associate myself with you. Well, there we are then, coming off the heels from one of the worst episodes of the series to one of the best. What a unique breath of fresh air that was. At this point of our initial watch-through sessions, Platinum Okami and I hadn't completely abandoned all hope for this show yet, but I'd be lying if I said we weren't a touch worried. Of course, then we watched the next episode and our hopes were immediately dashed again. But for a brief moment, we got to pretend the show was starting to find its footing. And that's not even to say that this is the only good episode of the series. Probably the best, yes, but there are still some episodes coming up that I would concede are decent. And don't worry, we'll be getting into those soon enough. But in the meantime, let's wrap this episode up, shall we? Vlad is absolutely the best written character in this show. Specifically this episode, provided all of it goes straight to hell at the end, but the setup and development before that was undoubtedly the most well done I've seen thus far. There's a level of depth to this guy that just isn't present in essentially every single other character in the show, and it shines through pretty clearly. Yes, the episode still had its fair share of what the hell was that, but it was noticeably less apparent than normal, and it was intermixed with some relatively decent character work. It really showcases that the writers actually are capable of making good stuff, and so it kind of begs the question of, why do you keep writing things like Splitting Images? I would say that I hope you keep up the momentum here, but I know that Prisoners of Love is the next one on the roster, so I certainly can't be giving people false hope with that statement. However, one thing I can say is that through everything else I've said about this series so far, through all the problems, stupid narrative decisions, and the fact that you had to make all of your characters stupider than a box of rocks in order for your premises to work, through all of that, and through all of what I will say in future videos, I will give you this one. You made a decent episode here. It had slightly less stupid problems than normal. And Vlad was characterized pretty well. I will give you an unironic thumbs up on that one. Maybe it actually is Sam and Tucker that ruined this show. Honestly, you guys wouldn't have that much to lose if you just cut them out at this point. Maybe something to think about when the inevitable reboot of this show happens.
Why is he waiting? Why isn't he killing him right now?
See, I don't know. Because, I don't know. It kind of makes it out like he has a plan later, but he doesn't.
Why have a plan? Why isn't your plan to just possess Jack, walk his ass outside, and then murder him? This is the easiest way to kill someone. You could literally just go up onto the roof, you could possess Jack, fly up to the roof, jump off, and then leave his body. Oh no, Jack killed himself because he realized I'm rich and he's poor. What do you mean?
Yeah, right.
Vlad, you want to kill him so fucking bad, but I feel like you don't because you're not trying very hard.